Hi, this time we are going to be beginning something brand new that I'm very excited about. You're going to be building monumental towers. A tower is something tall, a monument is built in honor of something, and you'll find out more about that. This video is long. The first part is going to be a tour with me around the world and through time to see how people have been building towers and monuments around the world through time. The second part will be an introduction to three artists that I think will inspire you and help you understand a little bit more about why people build towers. And in the last part, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks and share some materials that you already have around the house to help you build your tower. So sit back and enjoy. Part 1, Towers Through Time. People have been building tall monuments since prehistoric times. Stonehenge, a prehistoric monument built thousands of years ago in England, is a ring of standing stones. No one knows why it was built, but we do know that the stones line up with the sunset of the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, and with the sunrise of the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. No one knows why the prehistoric peoples living on Easter Island carved these figures in the South Pacific. Around the same time, another group of prehistoric people, the Olmecs, were carving similar heads thousands of miles north in Mexico. These monumental Olmec heads may represent some of their powerful leaders. Maybe one day, a long time from now, people may wonder why these heads were carved into the side of a huge mountain. Did you know that this is Mount Rushmore in South Dakota, and these are four of our former presidents, Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln. Okay, well, looking at great heads carved into mountains is pretty cool, but let's get back to towering monuments. The ancient Egyptians carved towering obelisks from stone. The obelisks had four sides that tapered to a pyramid shape at the top. They carved and built these obelisks to commemorate their rulers, special events, or to honor their gods. The ancient Egyptians carved hieroglyphs into the sides of the obelisks to describe who or what was being honored. Egyptian obelisks can be seen all around the world today. 13 of them are in Rome, including the one that now stands in Vatican Square. In fact, one 3,000-year-old obelisk was purchased by the United States from Egypt in 1881. It now stands in Central Park behind the Metropolitan Museum and still has its ancient hieroglyphics carved in its side. Around the same time, in 1884, the Washington Monument was completed and it was installed on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. You might recognize it. The Washington Monument was built in the shape of an obelisk to show awe, respect, and gratitude for George Washington. And at the time, can you believe this was the tallest building in the whole world? Totem poles are another kind of towering monument that were created by the native people in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. From the trees in the local forests, they carved images that symbolized family stories, sacred religious beings, animals that were important to them, and events that were important to their communities and families. I wonder which people, animals, events, and other things I might include in a totem pole to commemorate my family. What about you? Monuments are not only built to remember or celebrate people or commemorate events. Sometimes they're built to celebrate an idea. The Eiffel Tower was finished in 1889 in time to celebrate the 100th year since the beginning of the French Revolution. Nothing like it had been built before. Its shape was unusual, it was made completely from metal, and it was taller than the Washington Monument. In fact, it was the tallest building in the world for 41 years. The Eiffel Tower became a monument to France's engineering, design, and construction abilities. In fact, it's become a symbol of France itself. Part 2. 3 Towering Artists. Louise Bourgeois was a French-American artist who lived from 1911 until 2010. She made a group of towers using fabric on stainless steel supports. The fabric is all personal. It came from her clothes and other household items like sheets, pillowcases, and other used things. This tower is made from tapestry fabric, which is a thick piece of cloth with pictures woven into it with colored threads. Tapestry fabric was especially meaningful for Louise. When she was a little girl, she helped her mother reweave and fix or restore old tapestries. In fact, weaving and restoring antique tapestries was her family's business. Her towers are a kind of monument to her memories of people and places. This towering spider was also made by Louise Bourgeois. She calls this spider Maman, which also means mommy. In fact, it's a towering monument that Louise Bourgeois made to her mother. Louise once said that her mother was her best friend, and like a spider, her mom was also a weaver. And like this spider with its steel, cage-like body, Louise said she always felt very well protected by her mom. I wonder what kind of monument I would make to show how somebody was important to me. Another artist I'd like to introduce you to is Joe Minter, who was born in 1944 in Birmingham, Alabama. He worked as a mechanic, doing different kinds of construction. When he retired, he rediscovered his love of making art. In 1988, Joe began building what became his African Village, which is a monument to the struggles and the great achievements, the hope, and history of Africans that were brought here as slaves, and also to their descendants, of which he is one. The village is filled with monuments, totems, signs, and sculptures that he built from found industrial materials such as rusty iron and steel, wire, repurposed wood, and big thick chains. Joe's towering monuments, his totems, the rest of his sculptures tell the story of the struggle for civil rights. They celebrate African Americans who helped fight for and make our country better. And they're monuments to the history and hope that we will be able to keep doing better in the future. Minter began to make pieces that are not connected to the African Village, such as 400 Years of Free Labor, which is at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. This piece is made from the tools of slavery. You can see pitchforks, shovels, rusted chains. It's a tribute to the slaves and a towering reminder that we must not forget that their unpaid work and suffering built our country. Joe Minter calls this piece the dreamer. He says, the dream catcher represents the thoughts of a human being, thoughts from a faraway time, thoughts of our ancestors. Minter says those ties cannot be broken, the ties to our roots, to our family tree. Martin Luther King was our voice in the wilderness. He is the dreamer. Joe Minter's work is a monument to a social cause. Are there any social causes that you feel passionate about? The final artist I'd like to introduce you to is Simon Rodia. He lived from 1879 to 1965. Like Joe Minter, Simon Rodia also worked in construction, and he did tile masonry, which is like mosaics. And like Joe Minter, Simon Rodia also built a city of towering monuments on his own property in Watts, Los Angeles, in California. When Rodia started his project, he wasn't thinking about people, important events, or social causes. Rodia didn't have an idea to work from, like the other artists you met. He just wanted to build something big. Like the other artists that you saw, Rodia also used materials that he knew well. In his case, that was steel, concrete, and mosaic tiles. It took him 33 years to finish what he called Nuestro Pueblo, which is Spanish for our town. Rodia didn't really have a plan. He made up the design as he went along. He didn't have expensive tools. He didn't have power tools. He had to bend the steel and mix the concrete and do everything by hand. If you're ever in Los Angeles, California, you can visit the Watts Towers at the Simon Rodia State Park. To me, the Watts Towers are a towering monument to imagination and creativity. What do you think? Make a tower, tips and tricks. Hi. In that video, that was a lot of art that we just looked at, wasn't it? In this last part, what I'm going to do is share some tips and some tricks so that you can make towers of your own using materials that you already have in your house. It's going to be up to you to figure out what kind of tower that you want to make, but it will also depend on the kind of materials that you have around the house. Of course, you should remember your tower is not going to be sky high. They're not going to be as big as what we looked at. Your towers may only be about 12 inches high. You might want to make something stacked, like Stonehenge. It might have writing on it, like the hieroglyphs on the obelisks, or like Joe Minter used writing in his work. Maybe you'll include animals, people, or other symbols in your tower, like the totem poles. Maybe your tower will be made of things that remind you of one special person, the way tapestries and the spiders reminded Louise Bourgeois of her mother. Is there an issue in the world, a social cause, or an event that you'd like to commemorate or bring attention to, the way Joe Minter did? Or maybe you just want to see what kind of tower you can design and build, like Simon Rodia and the designers of the Eiffel Tower. Okay, are you ready? I have so many fun things that you might be able to use to make your towers. I'm not going to show you how. I'm just going to put out the materials, some ideas, see what you have in your house, and I can't wait to see what you come up with. Looks like toilet paper rolls could be a lot of fun. Think of what you might be able to do with cans. You can stack them, you can cover them, and you can decorate them. Twisting, folding, bending paper can be great for decorations, or you can just make a tower with this kind of technique. Newspaper can be rolled into tight tubes and taped together. You can make pyramids. You might even be able to make your own Eiffel Tower if you wanted. You can try rolling tubes and stacking them between pieces of paper. You can build towers and tall structures using cardboard and stiff pieces of paper by cutting slots and inserting the pieces together. You can see how adding drawing, color, and/or collage can take your tower and turn it into a work of art. In addition to stacking cans, you can think about stacking jugs, milk cartons, cardboard cartons, and tissue boxes. Adding other materials makes them more fun and brings them to life. This chart is for cardboard attachments, but it's good for any kind of stiff paper like manila folders, FedEx envelopes, cereal box type cardboard. You can cut flanges or feet to help your tower stand. You can use an L brace by cutting a piece of paper and taping it into the corners. You can cut slots and then fit the pieces together and insert them. You can make tabs, which are also like little feet or flanges, and slots. You can cut a slot and make a tab that has a wider bottom and that will hold that piece in. You can use brass fasteners, hole punchers, wire, or string as well. But let's see what you can do. Okay, that's it. This is your challenge. This can be a family challenge. You can work on this with a brother, sister, parents if you want, or it can be all on your own. Use what you have in the house. Explore, experiment. It doesn't have to be perfect. Work on it. Have fun with it. and I can't wait to see what goodies you have to share. Have fun.